Hello, everybody. It's midweek. We have a special episode of Explain Yourself with a couple great guests we're excited to talk to. Before we bring them in, I guess we're going to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the Kickstarter scene and comics in general. Joey, how's it going?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Doing good. Busy week, but always fun to take a break and talk about comics.
Yeah, man. It's been a fun week, man. Lots of stuff going on. I know you have a bunch of promotion for Scarlet going on. We got one of our guests. Awesome.
Oh, yes, Tony, how's it going? Sorry about that.
How are you?
We're doing great. We were gonna banter a little bit before any of our guests popped in because we know some you guys are running just a little bit late. But wonderful, you're here. How's it going?
Good. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on your show.
Great to be here, or great to have you here. I've been following Star Noir for a while, and excited to meet you and talk to you and talk about this book, which is looking really cool.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, so we were talking a little bit about it right now. That we both have a couple of things that we're promoting as well. Benjamin is working on Scarlet Twilight. Today I'm working on Don't Push the Red Button, which is an anthology, a 100 plus page anthology. And we were just talking about it behind in the backstage, and we got Projects We Love and Witch Starter today. So that's always super exciting to see that something like that on Kickstarter. So tell us a little bit about your Kickstarter. If you can give us the quick log line of the story really quick, and then we'll jump right into all that good stuff.
It's about a 1940s detective who teams up with a gray alien to stop a shapeshifter who's killing LAPD officers in Central Station. It's LA Noir meets the X-Files.
Nice. That sounds awesome. And is this your first Kickstarter, or how many have you done so far?
Let's see. This might be my fourth one, my third successful one. Yeah.
So with the unsuccessful one, was that your first one?
That was like a short film that I was making in college, and it was the Kickstarter was very haphazardly put together, so it's not like it not making its goal was completely crazy.
Yeah.
But the other one was a comic book, is a cyberpunk comic about a virtual reality bounty hunter, and that one was successful. And then cool. I started making Star Noir, and that kind of really took off.
So I was going to ask Go ahead. Sorry, Ben. I was just going to say I was going to ask some questions to Ben about some marketing and stuff. But I have a quick question about, especially going from having an unsuccessful comic or a project, and then going into successful ones. How do you feel? Did you learn from those? Because I feel like I constantly tell my kids, I'm like, I got a 5-year-old who's like, Dad, I just don't know how to do it. I'm just so upset at myself, right? And I'm like, well, sometimes, son, you got to learn through mistakes, right? And I feel like as we jump in, I feel like almost every single person's first campaign is a mistake, right? So tell us a little bit about how you've progressed from that first campaign.
Well, I mean, being bad at something is the start of being good at something. So you kind of once it fails, you kind of look at what it could have done better, and it really just kind of seemed like it just needed to be more of a complete package. You need to show a more fuller vision, full colors, full letters, give people a really great look at the project, and just really kind of come across as having a full plan. I mean, we don't come across, we actually do have a plan. But yeah, just kind of generating some like backer confidence in the way that you put your campaign together.
Yeah, that's, I think, really the community and how people will look at your past campaigns. And really, I found people really will chime in all sorts of stuff, like how much you're asking for and whether they're okay with that. And I noticed in your campaign, you've got that big graph of, hey, here's what the money's going towards. Really, it's the art mainly, which, of course, as an artist, I like to see people, kind of build up and let people know that that's a big expense or it ought to be. But I think your page is really well set up to reassure backers, A, of what you've been doing, B, and I think most obviously that it's a great book with great art, and see that you've got a good plan for all this and you've delivered before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just basically trying to show all your cards to the backer to be like you're backing something that is definitely has a great team. It's going to be made in a timely manner, and that we're going to constantly keep an open dialogue between the creator and the backer every step of the way.
Yeah, I noticed you said in one part of it that you kind of committed to biweekly updates, which I thought was smart to just kind of set an expectation. When I was running mine, it was like I didn't know how often to do it, or so that's a good thing to have.
Yeah, it's actually what we did for the first book. We did biweekly updates. We did it from the end of the campaign all the way through people getting it in the mail. Every 2 weeks, I would check in. I would show them new art. If there were any delays, I would tell them about what the delays were and give them a time frame for when we would bounce back from a delay. We just did that consistently to the point where like I kind of almost don't even need to think about it. I kind of like, oh, I think another update's coming. I got to do an update this week because it's been another 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's where I always struggled with, especially if there were delays, of course, how often I was going to talk about things. And, a little bit of the time it's going to be driven by, we had this delay or we just heard from the printer that this isn't as far along as we had hoped. But when I saw it, I thought, oh my God, why didn't I ever think of doing that? Just saying, hey, it's going to be every week, every other week, whatever. I think put everybody at ease, but also lower the tension on myself a little bit on, am I communicating too much? Am I bugging people? Am I letting people, not hear from me too much? And then they're wondering what's going to go on because there's so many campaigns out there that just aren't delivering when they ought to be as well. So I think that's smart. But yeah, I think this is a really cool book. And we have our other guest here, so he's going to give us the quick elevator pitch of his book. Let's bring in Peter Taylor. Peter, how's it going?
Hello, gentlemen. How you doing? I'm sorry.
No problem. It happens. Peter's got a Kickstarter live for a book called Pioneer Blood and Stars. Peter, why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Just quick elevator pitch on what the story's about.
I've learned to really, really slim down my elevator pitch. So I will literally try and do it in one line and then maybe talk about it a bit more later. When mankind reaches for the stars, which hopefully isn't too far away, there may be stowaways. That's the kind of hook. But I'll tell you more about the story when I've apologized 27 times for being English and late.
I guess it happens.
I didn't know that was a thing. Is that like a regular thing among the English?
Apologizing? Oh yes, we're worse than Canadians.
That's awesome. I love that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about because my thing is marketing, right? I am a comic book publicist and marketer, right? So I always kind of bring into the strategy of like, how are you guys marketing this thing? So Peter, I want to go to you first a little bit. How many projects have you done on Kickstarter to date?
This I think is my sixth.
Seventh. And how have you progressed since number 1 all the way to number 7?
So again, maybe I'll get into the story of how I came about to do number 1 just about 3 years ago in a bit, because it's a windy story in itself. But it was the first book in my series, Wren, which was about Sir Christopher Wren, again, being English, that's the kind of thing that you write about. I'd always wanted to write a book, had never done it. I actually found at the start of lockdown some pages in my attic that I wrote 40 years ago, or I drew 40 years ago. Dusted them off, couldn't find a script, wrote a story, and then showed some friends, look, I made a book. And they said, well, what are you going to do with it? And I said, well, I don't know. I've shown it to you. That's it, isn't it? And then literally somebody mentioned to me Kickstarter, which I had truly never heard of before. I'd heard of crowdfunding, but I'd never actually heard of Kickstarter before. So I learned a bit about that, the platform, and how you used it. And I threw the book on there, really not knowing what would happen. And it garnered some nice response from some people, some very kind people. And it did, I think, about 40, 50 backers. Because again, it is niche. Not everyone wants to read about 17th century London. And I think by the time, and then I went on from there. So I knew nothing about marketing. To be fair, I don't still really know an awful lot about marketing, Joey. But it's something that is integral if you're going to do more than a couple of these and try and take it, into the realms of seriousness, which is something I guess we all hope to do, right?
Yeah, I feel the same way. Marketing is one of those, especially marketing comic books, right? It's one of those industries or one of those businesses that is always changing, and you can almost never get a finger on it. So you always have to have you always have to be aware of what's going on and always be knowledgeable and getting in there. So, Tony, I want to ask you a question. So how do you kind of tackle these things when you see something's not working within a campaign? Like going in there and from the last campaign to next, how many different changes do you make when you see something that doesn't work?
I guess it depends. I mean, I'm kind of when it comes to marketing, just trying to turn over as many rocks as possible. If there's somewhere, some platform or some way that I can kind of tell people about the book, I will make something that's tailored to that platform. I've done I edit a lot of short form videos, like 10 seconds or less, and those do pretty well on like TikTok or YouTube. And then I also, I'm just a regular user on Reddit, and so sometimes I'll post about my comic book, and people really want to go check it out through Reddit. And then I also live with somebody who's very well versed in marketing and analytics, so she takes care of a lot of that stuff.
Cool. Hey, I've looked into Reddit a little bit. I've kind of not been the most regular user of it. I kind of just have been popping in there when I have a campaign going, which is not what you should do.
No.
But I've really been trying to broaden out ever since the last campaign I did. I've been starting to post TikTok videos, YouTube shorts, and they do get a lot of views. And I feel like there's got to be, I think my approach has been a lot like what you describe. It's like, all right, I don't necessarily have the greatest plan or a big amount of marketing experience within this field, but I'm just looking to be like, all right, is there some social network or especially some group within a social network where I think I'd be a good fit when I'm producing these people would like if I could kind of get it in front of them. I've been trying to put together, when I was doing the last Scarlet Twilight, I was kind of looking at Golden Age comic book groups on Facebook, which don't really allow promotional posts. But I started making some videos that were like about, say, JSA characters or something like that, mentioning my comic and posting them in there, and it was kind of just trying to slide things into places where people that would like this comic, that are Golden Age fans or things like that, could kind of get in there without really being too promotion-y, sort of just to follow the rules and also just to be a little disarming as well, I think.
Yeah, I think those when it comes to those kinds of like Facebook groups and things of that nature that kind of prohibit you from self-promotion, it's probably best to kind of just be involved in that community, right? You got to look at it as, oh man, I don't want to be, because listen, I'm gonna be this guy and tell you guys like some of my failures. When I looked at Facebook groups and the first thing that I saw was no promotion, I'd be like, man, forget that. I'm not even gonna go anywhere near that group, right? Forget these guys. I'm gonna be mad about it. But now I'm looking at it and I was like, oh man, I really failed myself and I failed my clients there, because that was the opportunity to kind of jump in those communities and be part of it and strike conversations and enjoy their conversations. And maybe I would have gotten a lot more people, wanting to be part of what I'm doing because I sparked something inside them, or I sparked a conversation, or maybe they just liked how we conversated, right? And now they just want to just back you because you're just a cool person now. I missed so many opportunities that way. And I think you're right, Ben. That's I think we need to look at those ones a little bit differently and kind of jump in the middle of the conversation and get in the community there.
Yeah, and to be consistent about it. That's the thing with me. When I got done with the last campaign for August, I was just like, I do not want to open Twitter or Instagram for like a month, if that would be feasible. But yeah, it's really a matter, I think, of just being consistent in those places. so that when you do have something to promote, it's not weird. It's not going to rub anybody the wrong way. And I think that's fair to these groups too. They don't, just exist for us to pitch stuff at them. So, that I think is the good way to go about it. Just takes a little more discipline and consistency than I've kind of thought to do so far. But yeah, hopefully that is the something we can learn from.
Which is why I went out and I was like, okay, I love those ones, right? So I created 2 groups. I created a group where there's a community group, right? We all talk and all that stuff. And I also created a promotional group where I'm like encouraging everybody to just push your stuff. And then I kept it open so that we can also share everybody's things, right? And one of the rules is if you're going to post something, share somebody else's stuff. And I think that's a big thing. Like if we are a community, means we're helping one another, and I think that's one of the biggest keys here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely,
I completely agree. Authenticity as well as consistency. You said, Ben, authenticity. If there's a group that you don't want to participate in, it's best not to, because people are smart, right? They smell it and they know what they're seeing. I don't actually do Facebook. I don't really do social media at all. I got on Facebook just a couple of years ago when someone said it would be a good place to find a colorist, because I do everything myself apart from color, because I have absolutely no eye for color at all. When my kids, I'm an older person, right? When my kids all got on Facebook, I don't know, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, it felt like I was reading their diaries. And I didn't want to read their diaries. Their diaries were not for me. So I stayed off it for years. So I've only been on it for a couple of years. Can't work it. Can't make it work. But I do enjoy reading some of those, and joining some of those groups. But again, being English, I don't comment a lot, because it's like, no one's going to be interested in my opinion. I have the same issues when trying to promote my books. No one's going to be interested in my books. They're just my books. And I'm learning actually that if you put something reasonable out into the world, people want to like you, and they want to participate. And they want to see what you've got, and it's awesome. It's an amazing feeling. Really different for me. Really different experience.
Yeah. So let's take a little bit of look through some of these really cool projects that you guys got going. Ben, if you wanna, do you want to take over on that?
Yeah, I'm going to bring up. Let's jump over to Star Noir. I'm going to bring that up right now.
Sure we've kind of met already, haven't we, Tony? We've been swapping cross proms.
Yeah. Also, that's also another great benefit of Kickstarter is that the cross promotion is absolutely key for, especially if you don't get a project we love early. It's still a way to be seen by other campaigns. So I think cross promotion is very helpful.
Yeah, I really liked when I first got on Kickstarter and people were I didn't really even know that was a thing. I really came into that pretty cold a couple of years ago, and people were like, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, oh, that's like an awesome idea. And that's something I think you do only find on Kickstarter, which is good to take advantage of. Yeah. But Tony, so the thing that caught my eye on this book when book 1 came out was the artwork, and really primarily the colors as well were really good. So your team did a great job there. And I think you're doing something really cool with combining these genres. These are obviously things people like to see on Kickstarter. The kind of sort of a little bit off base, not necessarily superheroes, but combinations of familiar things. And you've got a really good feel on an environment, a world, and a simple pitch, but I think also a story that has a lot of, turns to it. So give us a little bit more information about kind of how you started putting this together, how you got your team together, all that stuff.
Well, during the pandemic, I wrote quite a few different stories. If I just had an idea for something, I would just spend a few months just really kind of working out all the kinks of the story and then put it in a drawer. And then when it came time to find an artist, I picked up Star Noir. I thought that was a very strong book that people would respond to. And then when I was looking for artists on Facebook, this Argentinian artist, Pablo Debanis, he reached out. He started doing concept art for the very characters that you're seeing now. We just got right to work. And then before I knew it, I met this colorist on Instagram, Vinicius Townsend. He is from Brazil. He did some G.I. Joe covers for IDW. and then we just kind of collaborated on the vision together. It's usually when you're writing for the artist, but I feel like this team, it's just one cohesive vision. I pitch a vibe, and then the artist, they come up with something that it's not identical to what I have in my head, but it is pretty damn close. I'm just constantly blown away by the things that they come up with off the script. I feel like I write very simple descriptions, and they come up with something very dynamic and very eye-catching.
I agree.
So this is a 6-part murder mystery series. This is book 2. The first campaign we raised just over 10K, and then on Indiegogo I raised an extra 4 because people kept messaging me after the campaign was over. So I opened it up to Indiegogo. And now we're back. The second book is a little bit longer. The first book was 42 pages. This one's 46. And so it's very, very it's Star Noir. It really just combines the two genres in kind of an equal balance. We fully commit to the 1940s setting. We traverse kind of a very glamorized version of 1947 Los Angeles. And every time something sci-fi happens or we bring in the aliens, we really try to make a really concerted effort to do it with a sense of believability, that it would fit in this world, and it wouldn't feel at all that the noir elements were sort of brushed aside the moment an alien appeared.
Yeah, I really get that in that page where he's in his car. You've got just a little bit of the period details just in the same image, and I think that's logistically a really strong storytelling choice because obviously it's going to be a 40s car that he's abducted in, but really making sure there are just a couple things on every panel while this is happening that don't let you forget that you're in the 1940s, really set that apart. And you touched on something earlier about that I noticed and was going to ask about a little later, the vibe of this. That's, I think, the strongest thing on these visuals. And you kind of touched on a little bit of how you describe that to your team and how they picked up with it. But I think I was going to ask if you guys have lived in LA or, done a lot of research on the period and B, how it looks in general. Cause I really liked how rounded some of these images were, in that you're not just getting, you've got the palm trees, but you've got some other trees there. I think a lot of times when somebody draws LA, it's palm trees, or it's just the very superficial other comic book version of LA, or something you'd see in a cartoon. It doesn't really have the right feel that you see in movies, even, which is not to say it needs to be super authentic. It could just sort of have a more rounded, visual appeal that reminds you of those old movies like LA Confidential and things like that. Did you guys take a lot of time to really, really nail down the specific visuals you wanted in the panels to sell the setting and the time period? Like, how did you play with the balance of how much of that you show every page, or did that just kind of come about naturally?
No, we did a lot of research into 1940s LA. Every kind of detail that you see, from the street to the car to what the interior of the car looks like to what the exteriors of a nightclub looks like, all of that is pulled from historical photos, and we sort of make it our own from there. And then also we took some inspiration from the video game LA Noir, which is built a 3D 1940s Los Angeles. So any spots there were some visual gaps in our research, I would go into that video game and take screenshots of a bridge from different angles, so that the art team had just like this basically 360 view of how to recreate some of the architecture from that era.
I think that paid off really well. I feel like a lot of comics I see that should be leaning on the types of things that this artwork shows, that should really give you the environment. And that's something I really harp on with my stuff, is I really want to get a lot of atmosphere in there. I really want to make this feel not just like a city street, a specific type of city street. I think it's a great storytelling tool. It kind of just looks cool. Yeah. And I think that you guys really did a good job of that. And I think that video game, I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say they've done that before, but I think that's obviously been a successful approach here, and definitely something people ought to try out more if there's a game that does that specifically. And I know that Rockstar researches their stuff really well, so they're probably, it's not going to be too comic booky or cartoony. They're going to have done some of that work as well. But that was a pretty good idea, and I'd say it worked out really well.
Thank you. Yeah. There's just so much detail. I mean, myself, the artist, and the artist, we're just naturally detail oriented people. If we have this band that you have right here on this page, we're not comfortable with just, what's the interior look like? But what would the outfits look like? If that you're playing a piano, what were some of the piano designs from that era? What does that drum set look like? Just really trying to just have a good reference point for every little detail that appears, so that it feels really authentic, and it feels very, very believable and lived in.
Mm-hmm. And I think something I admire as an artist is you did all that, which obviously shows it's really successful. But I think your artist was smart enough, and I don't know if this was at your suggestion, but he's also done a lot of things here to get that across without giving himself a real headache on. It's very easy to get lost in like a crowded nightclub room. As an artist, when I see that in a script, I'm going to draw that someone else has written. I'm just like, oh my God, what do they expect this to be? And he's done this, like, especially this panel on the bottom here, that makes sense. That's a valid choice. And you would have a dark, audience section and have the lights on stage. But a real pro, or somebody that's really doing a good job, does, I think what he's done here is kept all the right elements focused upon, made it so that there's not too much work to the drawing, and he can concentrate on the details that you get, up in the dress and on the instruments and the piano, like you said. I think all the right things were concentrated on here, and I really like this page. The colors are amazing, and it's just got the research you did really shows.
I mean, the artist Apollo, he's in full control of the visuals that you see. I mean, I write very direct and to the point panel descriptions, and he comes up with a big dynamic shot where there's more detail than I thought there was going to be. I mean, the last panel on this page, it was really just, Stella the singer just looks at her band as she's singing the next part, but I didn't think that he was going to show the audience in that one. I thought that was going to be more of like a personal, just show them and maybe one or two bandmates, but he decided that he wanted to kind of show the background, the far background, in addition to the whole band together.
That's cool. I mean, and it establishes their relationship as well a little bit. Like, you can, in a movie, you'd have that shot where the singer looks over at the trumpet player, at the drummer, something like that. Really cool stuff. And I assume that this is our detectives here entering the room.
Yes, in the far background, which is really cool. Also, another detail that I did not envision, that was the artist kind of came up with that part of how they would enter and be directly in the far background, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, I'm always doing that just logistically. If it's a script I have from somebody else and the next page is like way too much stuff happening, or things that are going to be hard to show, this happening in panel 1 and this in panel 3, if there's something I can say, maybe we introduce these guys in some way and the previous panel, something like that, it gives me a little more room to make other images look really cool. Because a lot of times you get scripts, I used to get a lot of them. I work with some really good writers now, but there would be like a page description, and 3 of the panels on a 6 panels page would say, this is a big panel. Like, they can't all be big panels. So it's a good artist that can do what your artist has done here, and just pack a lot into a very appealing panel, but one that leaves them room to show off a little bit. Because ultimately that's what I think people are looking for, is they want all this stuff in there, but then they're like, oh, I packed it full of all this stuff, but now nothing looks that cool. And of course it can't. So yeah, I think the visuals are even stronger on some of these pages than were in the first campaign, which caught my eye immediately. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, I think it just comes from just very simplistic panel descriptions, just focusing on a specific action, a specific thing that should be shown, and not really telling the artist how that should be shown.
Yeah. Well, this is a lesson. I'm going to clip that into a short and share it as much as I can. Writers, give your artists some space. They'll do cool things for you.
Yeah.
Cool to see. Well, I want to jump over, if we can, to Peter's book, Pioneers, Blood and Stars. We can go back to the top here. Peter, if you want to jump back in and give us a little more detail on the story, how it came about, what this particular issue covers, and just give us the rundown there in a little more detail.
Sure. So the story started in book one with Lilu, who is the vampire girl, arriving on a mining colony on Enceladus, and I think, in terms of sort of Alien or the Sean Connery Outland movie, just or Aliens rather, a little mining colony in our solar system. So it's about 150 years in the future, and she arrives there looking for, as much as a vampire ever could, a quiet life. She's really looking to see, can my kind exist in a new environment? The backstory behind it is that Earth is a little trashed. There's not an awful lot of space left there for a subculture to be free and expand and live the way they want to live, even if the way they want to live maybe is questionable to the rest of the community. But she arrives out there really just looking to exist, be on her own, do her own thing, and just see if she can live. And in episode one, she meets actually on the plane, on the ship going out there, a couple of characters. One, a young girl called Began, who I'm kind of trying to write her as the most annoying person you could ever meet. Right? She's really, really cute. She won't take, that's her with the pink hair. She won't take no for an answer. She's even though she's younger and obviously doesn't realize how much younger than Lilu she is, she's kind of befriending her and isn't going to let her go. So for me, it's kind of a story about unexpected friendships. Mm-hmm. And Lilu is kind of drawn to this girl and doesn't really understand why. She's a vampire, right? She's had, nigh on 200 years to think of humans as cattle. But there's something going on here. In episode one, there's a sort of an industrial accident that happens, and Lilu, for whatever reason, finds herself saving Began, and is really confused as to why. And in that, they meet a couple of other reasonably fun characters. There's you guys call baristas, right? That's a universal word, right? There's the coffee shops on this colony are staffed by droids. So there's a robot barista called Costa, which is a play on a brand name of a coffee chain we have over here. I hope I don't get sued. No one's noticed yet. And the guy there in the orange shirt, Angelo, he works for the emergency services. So you've got this little group coming together, and they haven't noticed that Lilu is sticking out like a sore thumb. So they're trying to settle her into this place where they have more understanding of it. This is not Began's first time on a colony. So even though she's younger, she's trying to show her the ropes. And the first episode ends with the four of them sitting together, and Lilu gets this sort of, hang on, what am I doing here kind of moment. And we continue that in episode two. And what we bring in episode two, there's more of this confusing friendship. It goes much more extreme in this episode. And because of the confusion and Lilu not being quite in her right mind, somebody is arriving on the colony, a new mayor is arriving on the colony, and that's going to spell a lot of trouble for the characters. But Lilu's so wrapped up in her own head, she's not going to see this coming. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where we go in issue two.
Yeah. I've got to interject with one thing here. You've got this bunny sitting here. It's not peeing on anything. It's not chewing up anything that it shouldn't be chewing up. And I've got two of those downstairs, and I'll tell you that has not been my experience. Their behavior.
She spends, her name is Miss Tiggy Winkle, which is a Beatrix Potter character, but of course is a hedgehog in the Beatrix Potter. So again, that just kind of shows that Began is maybe not quite on the same plane as the rest of us, because she gives her rabbit a hedgehog's name. So, that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to play with the characters, a little bit and give them a little bit more than just the dimensions on the page.
Yeah. And you said you do all the up to the line art yourself.
Yes, yeah.
And you have someone else. The colors are great as
Yes,
well.
the colouring is amazing. That's
yeah,
a
he does a
gentleman
great job.
called Falk
These
Hansel.
panels. I'm sorry, what? Isn't it?
Falk Hansel, his name is.
Okay.
He works out of Ontario, I believe. We met when I was doing my first series, the Ren series, over one of those Facebook groups, Tony, that you were talking about. When I was looking for a cover artist, I did the first issue with only one cover because, again, not really experienced with variant covers. And he did a cover for me for issue 3 of Ren. I'll just show you. Can you see that?
Oh, I can. Let me see if I can make you a little bigger here. There we go.
And I just thought that was just an incredible piece of work.
Yeah, I love that.
It's beautiful. And I asked him to come back to do other covers. He was going to do a cover for this book for issue 1, and I had a bit of trouble finding a colorist for this. I wanted to work with, I like working with different people. I find the collaboration part of it, Tony, I've not experienced the real highs that that you have with people all coming together. But I just love working with different people and different cover artists, and that's the cover that Falk's done for this one. So as I say, and Falk said that he would colour the whole book for me. Now, I've never known him to do that for anyone before. I was saying most of the time he's a games designer. I think he has coloured a couple of other comics, but it's really, 1 or 2 and that's it. And he's enjoying the story so much that he said he wanted to give it a go. And I think his colours are amazing. I think it just makes the book beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. It's really nice stuff. I color my own stuff, but I've really always kind of wanted to find a colorist to work with. I'm just curious to see how it would look really if I wasn't doing it, and obviously to help out a little bit with time. As far as the writing relates to you doing the art yourself, how do you start? Do you kind of do a rough breakdown of pages? Do you do dialogue first? Are you kind of revising things in your script as you draw it? How flexible is your process there?
All of the above. It's becoming slightly less flexible. Because I'm now working with, I think someone Frank Pritteresi, who works with Clay Adams.
I'm not sure if I met him.
Yeah, he's a wonderful, wonderful guy. He's an editor. He's worked with DC. He's worked with Marvel for Nickelodeon for many years, and he's now freelance and does indie books. So yeah, he works with Clay a lot on things like the Nightmare Theatre, and I know those Clay's studio, and he put me in touch with Frank at the start of this year, and Frank asked me the same question, and I said, I don't know, I kind of write stuff down and then I draw stuff and then I make little comics on folded pieces of paper that sort of tell me where the panels are going to go, things like that. And he said, okay, yeah, you're a nightmare. You need to learn how to do this a little bit better. And he's been so patient with me, and I have said to him, on several occasions, you can just tell me to stop if you want. You can just say, Pete, you're not going to get this. This is not for you. Go find somebody else to write this stuff for you. But he's persevered because he thinks I can do it. And he didn't have anything to do with issue 1. I gave him all the baggage from issue 1, and we sat down and he said, okay, where's this going? And I told him, and he went, no, I don't think that's sensible. So we did a lot of rewrites during the first quarter of the year, and what we've got now is it's obviously it's the same story, but it's much tighter, and bits of it that probably weren't going to make a lot of sense make sense now. So that's kind of my process, is it condensing. So what I'm doing now is condensing. I write what's going to happen in this episode. So we've written the story arc, planned for 5 issues, what's going to happen in each episode, and then we just move down until what's going to happen per page and what's going to happen per panel. Where I score, if you like, Tony, where my work scores above, you'll pardon the expression, yours, I don't have to write much artist comment or much artist notes, because when Frank says, "I'm sorry, I don't get what's happening in this panel," I go, it's all in there. So it saves ink if nothing else, but and does give myself that flexibility to change things around, because I do change things as I'm drawing it. I think no, that sort of 5-panel page isn't going to work. It needs to be a 3-panel page. Exactly what you were saying, Ben. I've written 6 panels and all of them say large. So so you have to be kind to yourself, right? When and I know you've described yourself, Ben, as an artist who writes, right? So I think you've experienced some of this too.
Yeah, I'm definitely an artist first, and that's I did work with an editor briefly on my first story, and they did the same thing that in terms of condensing the story that you said you ran into, and I found that to be that was more of a market decision, I think, to go to 4 issues from the 7 or 12 I had initially wanted to do, but I did find that when I had to go in and make those decisions, the story was just a much stronger emotional ride. It had a better act structure, I think, better pacing. And it did work to iron out a lot of plot points. I was like, all right, how are they going to get out of this thing? And then somehow when I condensed it, because I lived with it for so long, a lot of those story knots untied themselves. When I kind of had to shake it up a little bit, look at it through fresh eyes, a lot of things worked that weren't working. And I think it was much stronger. So I think there's a lot to be said for getting another pair of eyes on your work. Somebody editing, either co-writing, something like that is definitely worth looking into, especially when you're doing everything by yourself.
Yes, and I've worked in big group projects. My career before this was IT, so I'm used to working in big teams where the sum of the parts is always greater than the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts. And I find the same thing here. If you put people together and say, go make something really good out of this, then they can do it. It's an awesome process to be part of.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of kismet that we had you guys on together. I think in a lot of ways the combination of genres you're both doing is pretty similar from a surface perspective. And I think the comments you guys have both had about working with your teams, what you've learned and how well you've managed to find ways to work together that have brought out everybody's strengths is really cool to hear. I didn't expect to hear such good and I think kind of clear illustrations of teams really amplifying one another in such cool ways.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't always like that, but it is. But it is now.
Of course,
so
but
it's a lot of frogs, right?
Yeah. That is probably true. But yeah, these are both great books. I'm going to throw Star Noir in the comments again real quick, so everybody go check that out. That has, I believe, 28 days to go.
28 days. Yeah,
and it is over the halfway point on its goal.
Yeah.
We have about 24 days to go, and Peter, you've met your goal for Pioneers, which is cool to see. Let's see, back to this one. But everybody who's watching, if you're watching now, watching later, we have these links in the description. We have them in the comments, and definitely go check these out. Guys, it was awesome to talk about these projects with you. I'm really excited for both these books, and it was heard a lot of great stuff about your process and how all the things that really show up and make these books look cool and I think stand out. You took some very intentional steps to make that work creatively, and it was I think there's a lot to learn from that. So very cool stuff to hear. But Joey and I are going to talk about a few books that we're promoting and working on ourselves, and a few other things. So, Joey, what's going on with some of the Geek Collective network of books?
So right now we're working to get Don't Push the Red Button out, which is a 100+ page anthology. Sorry, I'm over here like it's still a little early for me. It's like noon. I'm usually still sleeping. No, just kidding. But no, Don't Push the Red Button is a 100-page anthology. We have 11 different stories with over 30 professional comic book creators. We have some blockbuster creators like Francesca Fantini doing some cover work, Liana Kangas doing some cover. Francesca even has some interior work inside one of the stories. We have Travis Gibb, Marcus Annaso, Mario Candelaria, all kinds of really great people. We even might, and I haven't said anything and nobody knows this yet, but there might even be, maybe if we reach a goal, there might be a story with Tom Napolitano. So make sure you guys are checking out some of this stuff. Go to geekcollective.net/red button and sign up today. We are going to be going live on Monday. So if you guys really love some really cool stuff, like some really fun stuff, like some anthologies, check this one out. This one, the prompt for this one was, if you were approached by someone to push a button and you get a lot of money, you got to make a life-changing decision. But what if that was at the cost of somebody close to you dying? Would you still press the button? So we're going to follow 11 different stories talking about that exact scenario and whether they push the button or they have or they're about to, or we're going to see all kinds of really fun stuff. It spans over so many different genres like horror, supernatural, thriller, even suspense and drama. Like there's so much really cool stuff inside this story. I did not send you a preview link, Ben. I'm sorry I did not do that. Get that over to you so we can look at the behind the scenes. But I promise you guys, there's some really cool stuff. We try to keep this simple as possible and as clear as possible so that you guys can just get in there and love this thing. This is going to be over 100 pages. Gorgeous artwork inside.
Yeah, very cool stuff. I've seen a little bit of this book as well. Really cool, really great teams, some really nice artwork, and the covers are great too. So very excited about this one. I'm going to drop the first piece of artwork from Scarlet Twilight Part 2 on our show this Sunday. So anybody watching, come back on Sunday. We'll have some stuff. I showed the sketch a few weeks ago, but I'm really excited about dropping this piece and getting the campaign rolling. That'll be coming out probably early next year. So follow along in the show, and you'll get to see that. The only other thing I think we wanted to cover that I can remember, unless I'm wrong, is we always wanted to remind everybody to we have a deal with Gemini Comic Supply to get a bit of a deal on your Gemini mailers. I say this just about every week, but I'm always seeing people complain about comics showing up in a plastic wrapper or an envelope getting damaged, and you gotta find ways to spring for those Gemini mailers. So one way you can make that a little easier is heading over to Geek Collective, go into the link from there, Gemini Comic Supply, put in the code Geek Collective 10, and making it a little bit easier to do the right thing for your campaign.
What's cool, Ben, is I didn't tell you today, I got a picture sent to me through a text message today where one of the creators who used this code, they sent me a picture of their till after they used the code. It was going to be close to $300. It dropped it down to a little bit under 200. So if it works, it helps. So 10% is 10%, man, and you could use that, you know what I mean, to on something else, right? You can buy yourself a handful of energy drinks or something. So, but it saves you money. It definitely saves you at least anywhere, depending on how much you put into it, anywhere from $80 to like $200. I've heard some people save, and here we go, right? Here's the I'm going to go back to marketing, right? Part of marketing, where we're getting these books out there. We want these people to really love these books, right? We put all of our work into this, our blood, sweat, and tears into this thing, and to fail getting these things shipped out to them in pristine condition, because we can't. I mean, unfortunately, when it leaves our hands, we can't have any control over that. So it is up to us to make sure that we are making sure that that book gets to our backers in a proper way. And one of those ways is Gemini mailer, or wrapping that thing up as good as possible so that you make sure that it's not going to be received damaged, right? Because it's always really hard to look at you, to be super excited to see that oh man, I'm getting that book today because I just got an email saying that it's showing up at my doorstep. And then you open up the package and it's bent or damaged or broken, and it stinks, right? You were looking forward to it. And the one thing that we can do is take that little bit of extra step. And yeah, it does cost a little bit of more money, but here we go. Here's 10% off so that you guys can save just a little bit there, so that we can make sure that these things get to our backers in pristine condition.
Yeah, and I think that's important, especially, we've kind of been working on so many cool variant covers with lots of interesting materials. You got your glow stuff, you've got your foil stuff, and it's a shame to get that damaged. So check out that, use that code, plan that in your campaigns. And if you're watching this and you're a creator, and I don't think you'll regret it.
Yeah,
but
we talked a little bit about like, marketing and needing some help, and some of us aren't the best at social media and promotion, especially with artists and writers. When you guys have your heads down doing the work and creating, right, it's really hard for you guys to make the switch from doing that and then jumping on social media and put yourself out there, because it feels like it's a huge job all in its own, right? So
it
with
is.
Geek Collective, right, it really is. And so Geek Collective, we made it easy for you guys to do something like that, where we offer services. We are a full service comic book studio where we do have artists, we have writers, we have colorists, we have cover artists, interior artists, graphic designers. Benjamin's on the team. He's a cover artist, interior artist, and an audio and video engineer as well. So he makes trailers and stuff like that too. I am an audio engineer by trade as well, so we do some video and some audio work as well, but and as well as a graphic designer. So we have so many different services for comic book creators to help you guys out when you do have your head down creating, that you guys can come talk to us, and we'll make sure that we are still making sure that you are out in the forefront, even though that you are creating in the back end, and making it a little bit easier for you to still kind of grow that base and keep that base aware that hey, you got something coming up. And it's always one of those big things is I don't want to say pet peeve, but if I always see, I can always tell when a creator is about to launch a Kickstarter or a new project, is because all of a sudden they start coming out of the woodwork when you haven't seen them for a few months. So let's try
I
to
feel
make sure
targeted,
that you guys
Joey. I feel targeted.
I know you feel seen. So but the best thing that we can do for you guys is to make sure that you're still seen, right, during that time that you guys need to have your heads down. So make sure you guys are heading on over to geekcollective.net and checking out all our cool services that we offer, and we can help you guys out there.
Cool.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thanks again for coming on the show. It was awesome to meet you.
Yeah.
And the books look amazing. I'm glad to see they're doing so well. Everybody watching now or later, thanks for checking out the stream, and definitely go and check out the Geek Collective Network and check out these great books. I think that'll do it for today. Check us out. We're going to be live on Sunday night again this week with some other great books to go over. But for now, we'll sign off, and we will see you this Sunday. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys.